Emily Harris grew up in a world where doors opened before she touched them and laughter floated easily through the air. Her father, Mr. Harris, owned one of the largest distribution companies in the city. People respected him not because he was rich, but because he was gentle. He spoke softly, listened carefully, and smiled with his eyes. Emily admired him more than anyone else in the world. Their mansion sat at the end of a quiet street where the trees stood tall and the grass shone like it had been brushed. A fountain whispered in the middle of the compound, and birds rested in the branches above the balcony. Emily often spent her mornings there, watching the sunrise while holding a warm cup of tea. Her mother, Mrs. Harris, was a beautiful woman, elegant in everything she did. She wore her hair in a neat bun and walked like the air itself made way for her. She loved her family, but she loved status too. She cared about how people talked, what they saw, what they thought. She smiled in every picture, even on days when nothing in her heart smiled. Emily was their only child, and so the house moved around her. The cook remembered her favorite meals. The gardeners greeted her warmly. The maids helped her choose dresses. Life didn't shout here, it flowed. On afternoons, her father returned home early enough to sit in the garden with her, sharing quiet stories about his youth, his dreams, and his hopes for her future. Kindness is wealth too, he often said. Never let the world make your heart hard. Emily carried those words like a hidden lamp. Her father had a business partner named Mr. Bennett, a man who visited their home often. He laughed loudly, talked fast, and gave expensive gifts. Everyone liked him. Emily liked him too, because her father trusted him completely. Whenever Mr. Harris and Mr. Bennett spoke business in the study, their voices sounded easy, filled with plans and promises. Emily would pass by and hear them laughing, clinking cups of tea, calling each other brother. She didn't know that trust, when placed in the wrong hands, can become a knife. But on this day, this quiet golden day, none of that had happened yet. Emily walked down the staircase wearing a pale yellow dress. The sunlight touched her softly. The house smelled of fresh bread. A gentle morning. A peaceful one. She went to the garden where her father sat reading the newspaper. She leaned down and hugged him from behind. He smiled and patted her hands. "You're awake early," he said warmly. "I just wanted to sit with you," she replied, her voice soft. They sat together under the shade. No words, just silence that felt like safety. A few minutes later, Mr. Bennett walked into the compound, his car tires crunching lightly on the driveway gravel. He greeted them cheerfully. "Ah, my favorite family," he called out. Emily stood politely, smiling back. Her father welcomed him gladly. The two men walked inside to discuss work. Emily watched them go, still smiling, not knowing that some smiles carry shadows behind them. She turned her face back to the garden, the breeze playing gently with her hair. Days moved gently in the Harris home. Nothing loud, nothing sudden, just small changes that did not show their full meaning at first. Mr. Harris and Mr. Bennett grew even closer. They traveled together often, attended meetings, and returned with new plans. Whenever Mr. Bennett arrived, he came with stories, long, colorful stories about business opportunities and partnerships in other cities. Emily listened sometimes from the balcony. She loved how her father listened, truly listened without pride. He trusted easily. He believed that people who laughed with you could not possibly be planning anything against you. But sometimes, just sometimes, when Mr. Bennett's back was turned, Emily would see a different look in his eyes. A small, sharp look. Quick, like a shadow passing across the ground. She told herself it was nothing. People move differently when they think no one sees them. She ignored it. Her mother, however, began to notice something else. Mr. Bennett visited too often. He asked too many questions about accounts, projects, and private decisions. Mrs. Harris did not speak immediately. She liked to watch things first, like someone studying a door before deciding whether to lock it. One evening, while the sun was setting and the sky glowed orange, Emily and her mother sat in the sitting room arranging flowers in a vase. "Your father trusts too much," her mother said quietly, without looking up. Emily frowned a little. "Is trust not a good thing?" Her mother placed a white rose gently among the others. "It is, but even good things can be used to harm a person." Emily thought about her father's soft voice, his gentle eyes. Father always sees the good, she said, her tone warm. Yes, her mother replied. And sometimes that is the problem. They did not speak more about it. Later that night, Emily walked past her father's study. The door was not fully shut. She heard the sound of papers being turned, pages lifted and put back. Her father sat at the table, his glasses pushed up slightly, his forehead lined with thought. He was studying numbers. Many numbers. Emily knocked lightly. He looked up and smiled. The smile was warm, but tired at the edges. Come in, my dear, he said. She stepped inside and sat beside him. Is everything okay? She asked softly. He closed the file gently, as though closing it could soften what was inside. It's only business, he said. Every company has its storms. We will be fine. Emily nodded. She believed him. She always believed him. She laid her head on his shoulder, and he kissed the top of her hair. They stayed that way for a while. The study felt safe. The lamp glowed softly. Outside, the night was quiet. But downstairs, in the sitting room where guests were usually welcomed, Mr. Bennet stood alone, looking at his phone, typing. A message. A short one. Something that would one day break the Harris home. But tonight, no one knew. Tonight was still peaceful. The next morning, Mr. Bennet returned with a wide smile and a box of sweet pastries. He placed them on the table like a celebration. For my favorite family, he said. Everyone smiled. Only Mrs. Harris watched his eyes carefully. Later, Emily passed by the garden where her father and Mr. Bennet were discussing something quietly. Their voices were calm but serious. Mr. Bennet spoke first. It's a small risk, but the reward is great. Her father asked, and the documents are clear? Completely clear, Mr. Bennet said, smiling. Emily watched from the doorway. She could not hear every word, but she saw her father nod slowly, trusting again. She did not know that trust, once given, cannot always be taken back. She turned away and walked inside. The breeze was soft. The morning was beautiful. Life was still calm. But beneath that calm, small cracks were forming, quiet cracks, the kind that do not show themselves until the whole wall begins to shift, and Emily, with her gentle heart and untouched hope, continued her day unaware that the world she knew was already beginning to change. Weeks passed, and the Harris home remained bright on the outside. The fountain still whispered, the flowers still opened each morning, and the staff moved in their usual rhythm. But inside, the air was changing, very slowly, the way seasons change before anyone notices. Mr. Harris began to spend longer hours away from home. He woke earlier, left before breakfast, and sometimes returned when Emily was already asleep. When she did see him, his smiles were still warm, but they did not last as long. They slipped away too quickly, like a candle flame touched by wind. Emily tried not to worry. She told herself that business sometimes became heavy. She told herself this was normal. Yet, there were nights when she stood at her bedroom window, looking out at the quiet garden, whispering, "Father, please be okay." Her mother watched everything in silence. She no longer questioned. She only observed, quietly, with eyes that saw deeper than words could reach. One afternoon, Emily went to her father's office after school. The building was tall and glass-walled, glowing in the sunlight. She greeted the receptionist, who used to smile brightly when they saw her. Today, their smiles were thinner, polite but not warm. She noticed it but said nothing. She walked to the conference hallway and stopped when she heard voices inside a room. The door was partly open. It was her father and Mr. Bennet. No laughter today. She did not mean to listen, but the tone held her still. Mr. Bennet's voice was low, steady. "Just a temporary issue," he said. "We only need to move some funds. I'll handle the rest. Trust me." Her father didn't answer immediately. Emily could almost feel his hesitation through the door. He finally spoke, softly. "I have always trusted you." Those words sounded heavy. Mr. Bennet exhaled lightly, almost relieved. "Then leave this part to me." Emily stepped back from the door, unsure why her heart felt tight. She walked down the hallway and waited in the lobby until her father came out. He saw her and smiled, but his eyes looked far away. "Are you tired?" she asked gently. He laughed a little, but the sound didn't bloom. "Just thinking too much, my dear." She held his arm as they walked to the car. The evening breeze felt cool, but his hand was warm, almost too warm, like someone holding on to something that might slip away. That night, the dinner table felt different. Her father ate slowly, his mind somewhere else. Her mother watched him carefully, but said nothing. Emily sat between them, the quiet pressing against her skin. After the meal, Mrs. Harris followed her husband to the study. Emily stayed in the sitting room, curling up on the couch. She heard the soft murmur of their voices. Not arguments, just low, careful words. When her mother returned, Emily looked at her silently, asking without asking. Her mother sat beside her. Her voice was calm, slow. Your father is caring more than he is saying. Do not ask him questions. Just stay close to him. Emily nodded. That night, she went to her father's room and found him sitting on the edge of the bed, looking at an old framed picture of him holding her when she was a baby. His face was tired, yes, but also full of love. Emily walked to him and wrapped her arms around him. He held her back, holding her just a little longer than usual. My Emily, he whispered, his voice almost breaking, though he smiled after. You will always have a soft heart. Promise me one thing. She looked up. Anything. No matter where life takes you, do not lose your kindness. Emily nodded, slowly, promising without speaking. He kissed her forehead gently. Then they sat in quiet, the kind of quiet that holds love and worry together in the same breath. The house was still bright, the garden still peaceful, but a shadow had begun to move, slowly, gently, toward their door. The morning stopped feeling light. It did not happen in one day. It came like a slow dimming of the sun. First, suppliers began to call, then the banks, then silent looks between staff who no longer greeted Emily with the same warmth. The fountain in the compound still flowed, but the sound of it felt louder, like the house itself was trying to cover something. Mr. Harris became thinner. His shirts hung differently. He still spoke softly, but his voice no longer had the calm weight it once carried. When Emily greeted him, he hugged her a little too tightly, like someone holding on to the last part of himself that had not been shaken. One afternoon, as Emily came home from town, she found her father sitting alone in the garden. No newspaper, no tea, just his hands clasped together, his eyes fixed on nothing. She walked slowly to him. Daddy, she called gently. He blinked, looked up, and smiled. But the smile was tired, like a door struggling to stay open. You're home, he said softly. Emily sat beside him. They did not speak for a long time. The air smelled of wet soil. Birds fluttered somewhere above them. Finally, she asked quietly, Is it the company? He inhaled slowly. Yes. Her chest tightened, but she stayed calm, the way he always taught her. Can it be fixed? He looked at her, really looked, and in that moment she saw something she had never seen in him before. Fear. I don't know, he whispered. Emily placed her hand over his. His hand trembled slightly, but he did not pull away. That evening, the house felt different. Even the walls seemed to listen. Mrs. Harris walked into the study, where her husband sat surrounded by papers and files. Emily stood near the hallway door without entering. She wasn't trying to eavesdrop. She simply did not know where else to stand. Her mother spoke quietly. You trust Bennett too much. Her father closed his eyes. Pain crossed his face like a shadow. He has handled everything, he said. He knows the accounts, the partnerships, the transfers. I believed we were building something together. Mrs. Harris's voice did not rise. It was steady, almost sad. He has been moving money, hasn't he? Silence. Not loud, not sharp, just the silence that said everything. Emily's heart sank, slowly, like something sinking in deep water. Her mother stepped closer. Tell me you still have control. Her father swallowed hard. I signed a document in trust. He said it was temporary. His voice broke. Mrs. Harris sat down, her hands covering her face. Emily walked away quietly, her chest heavy, her steps slow. She went to her room and sat on the edge of her bed. She pressed her palms together, the way her father used to do when thinking. She whispered to herself, he is strong. Everything will be fine. She said it again, and again, and again. But her voice did not sound like belief. The next morning, their lawyer came. He spoke with careful words, gentle words, soft words, the kind of soft that hurts more than sharp ever could. Documents had been transferred, assets moved, power shifted. Mr. Bennett's name showed up where Mr. Harris's name used to be. Everything was legal. Everything was planned. Everything was gone. Emily sat beside her father in the study. His breathing was slow, too slow. His eyes were open but unfocused, like someone watching the pieces of their life fall through their fingers. Her mother stood near the shelf, holding on to it as though her legs might give way. No one cried. There was no shouting, just stillness, a heavy, heartbreaking stillness. Emily placed her hand on her father's sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered. He looked at her, and in his eyes she saw the quiet breaking of a gentle man. He smiled through the pain. "We still have each other," he said. His voice did not shake, but his heart did. Emily leaned her head against his shoulder, the shoulder that had once carried everything with ease, and she closed her eyes as the house around them began to shift. Life had not fallen in one moment. It had fallen slowly, and now it had landed. The Harrises did not leave the house immediately. Losing a home is not something that happens in one breath. It happens in the small things first. The gardeners stopped coming. The cook left quietly one morning, leaving her uniform folded on the kitchen counter. The driver who had been with the family for years handed over the car keys with eyes that would not meet Mr. Harris's. The fountain still ran, but no one remembered to clean it. Leaves floated on the water. The flowers in the garden bent slowly, petals drying at their edges. The house, once full of movement and warm light, began to feel like a memory. Mr. Harris tried to save what he could. He visited banks, old friends, business partners. He returned home every evening looking smaller, like something inside him was being removed piece by piece. Still, he tried to laugh sometimes. He tried to say all will be well. But the words had no home to settle in. Mrs. Harris became quiet. Not angry, not bitter, just quiet. She spent long hours sitting by the bedroom window, looking outside but not really seeing anything. Her silk scarves remained hung in the wardrobe. Her necklaces stayed inside their boxes. The woman who once cared for appearances had no strength to pretend anymore. Emily stayed close to her father. She made tea for him. She sat next to him when he reviewed papers that no longer mattered. She stood behind him when he greeted visitors, mostly people who came only to say polite words and leave quickly. One evening, the lawyer came again. He did not stay long. He did not have to. They had to leave the house. The bank had taken it. They would move out in 3 days. The words were spoken gently, respectfully, but they landed like something heavy dropped into deep water. No one spoke for a long time after he left. Finally, Mr. Harris nodded to himself, as if accepting the final shape of something that had been collapsing for weeks. He stood and walked to the garden one last time. Emily followed him. The garden looked tired, like it had been holding its breath too long. Mr. Harris touched a rose bush lightly, his fingers steady. "I planted these when you were born," he said quietly. Emily's eyes softened. "They're beautiful, Daddy." He smiled, a small, sad smile. Yes, they were always beautiful. The next morning, they packed. Not clothes first, not jewelry, not furniture. They packed memories. Emily folded photographs carefully. The one of her 5th birthday, the one where her parents laughed under the sun, the one where she stood between them with new school shoes. She didn't cry. She just placed each picture into a small brown box, gently, like handling pieces of her own heart. When she looked around the room, everything suddenly felt bigger, emptier, spaces where carpets once laid, walls that suddenly looked plain without paintings. The quiet echoed. They moved to a smaller apartment, 1 room and a small sitting area. It was not dirty. It was not unsafe. It was simply unfamiliar. The air felt different. The walls were close. Emily lay on the small bed that first night and stared at the ceiling. She whispered to herself, "This is still home because we are together." But she could feel something else too. They did not have enough to stay like this for long. A week later, her father sat her down. His hands were folded, his voice soft. "Emily, I have tried. I am still trying, but things are not improving. We cannot live like this forever. You are grown now. You may need to help us. Emily nodded before he could finish. There was no hesitation, no fear, just love. I will work, she said softly. I can do that. Mrs. Harris closed her eyes and turned her face away. She was not used to needing help. A neighbor knew someone in the city. A household looking for a maid. Good pay. A bed. Meals. No rent. Emily listened quietly. Her father held her hand. You do not have to do this, he whispered. Emily squeezed his fingers gently. Yes, I do. The morning she left, the sky was gray. Not dark. Just quiet. Her father walked her to the bus. He placed her small bag on her lap. He tucked a note and a little envelope of savings into her hand. Emily, he said, voice low. No matter where you go, no matter how life treats you, remember you are my daughter. You are not small. You are not less. You are enough. Emily's eyes watered, but the tears did not fall. She leaned forward and hugged him not as a child, but as someone who understood loss now. She stepped onto the bus. The door closed. The engine started. Her father grew smaller in the window, his hand raised, his eyes full. Emily held her bag close and whispered inside her heart, I will carry us. The city road stretched ahead, long, wide, unknown. She did not look back, not because she did not love them, but because looking back would have broken her. And she needed to stay whole. The city felt different the moment Emily stepped off the bus. The air was thicker. The streets were louder. People moved quickly, as if time had no patience here. Cars honked. Feet hurried. No one looked at her long enough to see her. Emily held her small bag close and followed the woman who had come to pick her up. The woman did not introduce herself. She only said, come, and walked ahead. Emily walked behind her, quiet. They reached the house, a tall building with a wide compound and bright walls. The gate opened without a sound. The house looked beautiful from outside. Clean, polished, organized. For a moment, Emily thought maybe she would be okay here. But beauty outside does not always mean kindness inside. A woman opened the front door. She wore a fitted dress and held her chin slightly high. You're the new girl? She asked without a smile. Emily nodded. Yes, Ma. The woman looked her from head to toe, her eyes slow and cold. You will work hard here. We don't tolerate laziness. Do you understand? Yes, Ma, Emily replied softly. The woman turned and walked inside. Emily followed. The house smelled of expensive candles and clean floors. Paintings hung on the walls. Light poured in through large windows. Emily used to live in a house like this. A house where laughter was easy. A house where love lived. Now she was here to clean one. Madam pointed to the staircase. Your room is downstairs, behind the kitchen. It is small. Only one bed. You will share the bathroom with the other staff. You wake before everyone. You sleep last. Are we clear? Yes, Ma. Madam didn't nod. She simply walked away. Emily stood still for a moment, letting the new life settle in her bones. The other maids were in the kitchen. One was older, her eyes tired. The other was younger, her face sharp with judgment. The younger one laughed when she saw Emily. So this is the new one? Look how soft her hands are. She has never worked in her life. The older one said nothing, just watched. Emily offered a small smile. I'm Emily. The younger maid rolled her eyes. We don't need your name. Just do your work and don't complain. Emily lowered her gaze. Yes. She swept the kitchen. She washed plates that were already clean. She wiped the counters again and again. She ironed clothes until her fingers felt numb. Every time she slowed her hands, the younger maid clicked her tongue loudly. See, I told you she is weak. City princess. The words stung, not because they were loud, but because they were spoken without care. Like Emily was not a person, just something to mock. At lunch, Emily stood aside while others ate. No one told her to join. No one offered her a plate. She waited silently. When Madam passed by and saw her standing, she frowned. Why are you standing there like you're lost? Eat if you want to eat. Or are you expecting someone to serve you? Everyone laughed. Emily's cheeks flushed, but she kept her voice steady. I will eat after. It is okay. Madam shook her head and walked away. The laughter faded, but the sting stayed. In the late afternoon, while carrying a bucket of water to mop the hallway, the bucket slipped from Emily's hand and water splashed across the floor. The younger maid shouted immediately, "Look at you. Even water is too heavy for you? You think this place is your father's house." The words hit deeper than she expected. They did not know. They could not know. Emily bent down quietly and cleaned the spill. Her hands shook, not from the weight, but from holding her emotions so tightly they had nowhere to go. That evening, when the house grew quiet and the sky outside darkened, Emily slipped to the back doorway. She sat on the small step outside, hugging her knees, looking at the fading light. She did not cry. The tears sat in her chest, not her eyes. She whispered softly, "I am still me. I am still me." She repeated it like a prayer. Behind her, in the dim driveway, the quiet driver was cleaning the car. He lifted his eyes and saw her. Days folded into each other like quiet pages. Emily woke before the first light touched the windows. She swept the hallways, scrubbed bathrooms, washed piles of clothes, ironed shirts that had no wrinkles, and served meals without being seen. Some days were harder than others, not because of the work, but because of the way they looked at her. As if she was less, as if her voice did not matter, as if her presence was only useful when it was silent. The younger maid, her name was Lisa, seemed to enjoy it. Every mistake, every slow moment, every tired sigh. She noticed. "She is too soft," Lisa would say loudly. "She will not last here." Emily did not answer. She saved her strength. Not every battle needs defending. The older maid, Martha, sometimes watched her with quiet eyes. She did not help. She did not comfort. But she did not join in the mocking either. Even silence can be a form of kindness. In the evenings, after the house quieted, Emily would step outside to the small back porch. She sat there not to rest. Rest was a luxury, but to breathe. The sky in the city did not show stars clearly, but she looked anyway. She looked as if memory alone could bring her old sky back. And most evenings she would see him, the driver, moving quietly, wiping the car, checking the tires, closing the gate softly. He never hurried. He never shouted. He carried a calm that did not ask for attention. One evening, Emily was struggling to carry a heavy tray of water jugs from the storage room. The tray tilted. One jug slipped and bounced on the floor, water spraying across the tiles. Lisa's voice cut through the hallway immediately. "What did I say? She is useless. Who drops water?" "Water." Emily bent down at once, gathering the bottles, her hands trembling. Lisa continued loudly, "You see yourself? This is why some people remain nothing." A voice interrupted, low and steady. "That is enough." Lisa stopped. The driver stood at the entrance of the hallway, one hand resting against the wall, his expression calm, but firm. Lisa scoffed. "Why are you speaking? Is she your sister?" "No," he replied, his voice still steady. "But she is a person. Speak to her like one." The words were not loud, but they filled the space. Lisa rolled her eyes and walked away, muttering under her breath. Emily stayed kneeling, touching the bottle caps she had already gathered. Her throat felt tight, but not from shame. From relief. The driver walked closer and picked up the last bottle, placing it gently on the tray. "You don't need to rush," he said softly. Emily nodded, but her voice did not come. She swallowed, steadying herself. "Thank you," she whispered. He looked at her, not with pity, not with rescue, just quiet understanding. "You're doing your best," he said. The words were simple, but in a world that had made her feel invisible, they felt like light. That night, Emily sat on the back porch again, her hands resting on her knees. She didn't cry. She didn't sigh. She just breathed, slowly. The driver passed by, heading toward the gatehouse. He paused when he saw her. "Can I sit?" he asked. Emily nodded. He sat a small distance away, not too close, not too far. Silence settled between them, not heavy, just quiet. After a while, he spoke. "My name is Daniel." Emily looked at him gently. "Emily." He nodded. He already knew. They didn't speak after that. They didn't need to. Sometimes, the heart recognizes kindness before it recognizes anything else. Every day after that, when Emily worked, she could feel his presence somewhere nearby. Not watching her, not protecting her, just existing in the same quiet way she did. Somehow, that was enough to help her breathe. Her suffering had not ended. The mocking had not stopped. Her life had not suddenly transformed. But there was now one corner of the world, just one, where she was not invisible. The days continued. Emily worked. She learned when to speak and when silence was safer. She learned how to move quietly, how to carry weight without showing effort, how to swallow pain without allowing it to reach her eyes. The mocking did not stop. Lisa laughed whenever she could. Madam spoke sharply and expected perfection. Sir Carter barely noticed she existed. But every evening, when the sun softened and the compound grew quieter, Daniel would be somewhere nearby, working silently, watching without intruding, speaking only when words had meaning. They did not talk much. Some bonds do not grow in conversation. Some grow in understanding. One evening, Emily scrubbed the living room floor. The tiles were cold beneath her knees. Lisa sat on the couch, filing her nails, watching her with a small smile. "You should be grateful you are even here," Lisa said suddenly. "People like you belong in the street. Don't forget that." Emily kept her head down. Silence was safer. But inside, her heart remained steady. She knew who she had been. She knew who she still was. Pain did not remove identity. Memory did not disappear simply because life had changed. Yet, the words still bruised something inside her. Emily finished cleaning and walked outside for air. The evening was cool, the sky a deep blue. She sat on the back step, hands clasped together. Her breathing was slow, but her chest felt heavy, as if something inside her had been soaked in sadness for too long. Daniel approached quietly. He did not ask what was wrong. He simply sat beside her, the same distance as always. "You don't deserve how they treat you," he said softly. Emily looked at him, really looked. He wasn't just kind. He was steady. Strong in a way that did not need to be shown. "I used to live like them," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "I had everything. I had home." Daniel did not look surprised. It was as if he already knew. "Life changes," he said, "but your heart is still the same. That matters more than what you lost." Emily closed her eyes, and for the first time since she arrived, tears fell, not fast, not loud, just slow tears that slipped like quiet rain. Daniel did not touch her. He simply let her cry. Sometimes love begins not in romance, but in the place where someone allows your tears to exist. The next morning, the house was louder than usual. Cars lined the driveway. Sir Carter wore a suit. Madam was dressed in fine lace. Guests were expected. The staff cleaned everywhere. Emily moved from room to room, her body tired, but her steps steady. When the guests began to arrive, Emily stood aside like always, invisible. Then a murmur passed through the room. Whispers, soft, surprised voices. Someone important had arrived. Emily did not look up until she heard a voice she recognized. Daniel's voice, but different, strong, clear, authoritative. She looked up. Daniel stood in the center of the sitting room, not in his driver's uniform, but in a tailored suit. Tall, calm, unshaken. Madam and Sir Carter stood before him, stiff, uneasy. Lisa had gone pale. Emily's breath caught. One of the guests spoke softly, almost in awe. "That's him, the owner of the house." Another added, "He owns all the properties in this area, even the company Sir Carter manages." The room shifted, like the air itself had changed direction. Emily stared, unable to move. Daniel's eyes found hers, not with pride, not with triumph, just with the same quiet steadiness he always had. He walked toward her slowly. The room fell silent. When he finally stopped in front of her, he spoke softly, the same voice she knew. Emily. Her name sounded different when spoken here. Not like a servant's name, but like a person's name, like someone who mattered. He continued, "I have watched you carry pain with grace. I have seen your heart. You did not let hardship make you bitter. You did not let cruelty make you cruel." His words were not for the room. They were for her. Madam lowered her head. Lisa's eyes widened in disbelief. Daniel turned to the household. No one who mocks kindness has a place in my home. His voice was gentle but final. Then he looked back at Emily. You are not meant to bow to anyone here. If you will allow me, I would like you to stay. Not as a maid, but as someone I respect. Emily felt her chest swell, not with pride, but with relief, with recognition, with being seen. For a moment, she could not speak. Finally, she whispered, yes, just one small word, but it carried her entire journey. Daniel nodded, his eyes warm, steady. The world did not explode. The room did not cheer. Life simply shifted, softly, naturally, into something new. Emily had broken. Emily had endured. Emily had remained herself. And now, slowly, gently, lovingly, Emily would begin again.